You ever felt like someone was quietly draining the life out of you, yet you couldn't explain why? You laughed with them, shared your secrets, even trusted them with your heart. But deep inside, something felt off, almost like your soul was under attack. This is not just emotional pain. This is a spiritual battle. And if you're an empath, you are on the front line. Narcissists don't just want your attention. They want your light, your peace, and your very energy. Today, I'm going to pull back the curtain on the hidden war behind narcissism, the war most people never see until it's too late. We're going to uncover why they target you, how they break you down, and the one thing they fear more than anything. By the end of this video, you'll know exactly how to protect yourself and reclaim your power. So, if you've ever wondered why certain people are drawn to you, stay with me until the end, because the truth might just change everything. And hey, if this resonates with you already, drop a comment below and let me know, because your story might be the very thing another empath needs to hear. Most people think narcissism is just about arrogance, vanity, or someone who constantly talks about themselves. But that's only the surface, a polite mask they wear in public. Beneath that mask lies something far more calculated and far more dangerous, a battlefield that isn't fought with swords or guns, but with emotions, energy, and the soul itself. If you are an empath, you are not just walking through this battlefield. You are the primary target. Narcissists are not attracted to just anyone. They are drawn to those who shine, those who feel deeply, those who can sense the unspoken pain in a room. They are drawn to people who heal others without even trying. People like you. But here's the truth most don't want to face. That very light you carry, the empathy you see as your gift, is also the beacon that calls the predators in. And when they come, they don't come to simply enjoy your company. They come to take. They come to feed. They come to strip away the very essence that makes you who you are. The war begins quietly. It doesn't announce itself. There are no flashing warning signs or sirens blaring in your mind. Instead, it begins with charm, with flattery, with the feeling that you finally met someone who truly sees you. You feel understood, valued, even admired. But this is not admiration, it's assessment. The narcissist is reading you, testing your boundaries, learning your weaknesses, and noting every crack in your armor. They study your compassion, your desire to help, your willingness to forgive, because those qualities, while beautiful in a safe world, become dangerous in the hands of someone who intends to exploit them. This is where the spiritual war is the most deceptive. It feels like love at first, but it's actually an invasion. Over time, you begin to notice small changes in yourself, but you can't quite explain them. Your energy feels lower, your confidence slowly erodes, and yet you blame yourself for the distance or tension. The narcissist makes sure of that. They subtly twist your reality, making you question your memory, your judgment, even your sanity. This is not just manipulation. It is spiritual disorientation. They know that if they can make you doubt your inner compass, they can lead you anywhere they want. And the cost? It's not just emotional scars. It's the dimming of your inner light. Empaths thrive when their energy flows freely. But in the hands of a narcissist, that energy becomes a resource to mine, not a gift to share. What makes this war even more dangerous is that it is invisible to the outside world. Friends and family might see the charming, generous side of the narcissist and wonder why you seem withdrawn or unsettled. They might even think you're overreacting. This isolation is intentional. By cutting off your emotional allies, the narcissist strengthens their hold over you. And the more isolated you become, the harder it is to see the truth clearly. The war is now in full swing. But you may still believe you're just in a rough patch. That's the genius of their tactics. They don't need to break you all at once. They simply weigh you down, one tiny cut at a time, until you barely recognize yourself. For an empath, this is a devastating place to be. You may have spent your whole life believing that if you just love someone enough, they will heal, they will change, they will finally see you for who you are and treat you accordingly. This belief is part of your strength, but in this war, it becomes the very weapon used against you. The narcissist feeds on your hope, because as long as you hope, you will stay. And as long as you stay, they will have a constant source of emotional and spiritual supply. What you may not realize is that this is not random. Narcissists don't stumble upon empaths by accident. They seek them out. They recognize your light instantly. They can sense your openness, your willingness to listen, your hunger for genuine connection. To them, it's like finding a well in the desert, except they have no intention of protecting it, only draining it dry. But here's the part that makes this a true spiritual battlefield. Narcissists are not fighting for love, for partnership, or for understanding. They are fighting for dominance of your spirit. It's not enough for them to win arguments or have the last word. They need to feel that they own you emotionally, that your thoughts and decisions revolve around them, that your sense of worth is tied to their approval. When they achieve this, they've claimed victory in the war, and you are left feeling like a shadow of the person you once were. This is why many empaths describe life with a narcissist as feeling foggy or numb. The vibrant colors of your spirit fade, replaced by the dull grays of survival mode. If you've ever been in this position, you know the toll it takes. You wake up tired, even if you've slept. You second-guess yourself in ways you never did before. You apologize constantly, even when you've done nothing wrong. Your mind replays conversations over and over, trying to figure out what you could have said or done differently. And all the while, the narcissist acts as if nothing is wrong, because to them, nothing is. They're getting exactly what they came for: control, attention, and the sweet satisfaction of seeing someone so strong slowly bend to their will. But here's the thing about this war. While it is silent, it is not without resistance. Empaths, once awakened to the reality of what's happening, have the ability to reclaim their ground faster than the narcissist expects. Because your power was never actually theirs. It was only borrowed through your willingness to give. And the moment you see the truth, the moment you understand that this is not just about hurt feelings but about spiritual survival, everything changes. You begin to notice their patterns instead of falling for them. You start setting boundaries that once felt impossible. You guard your energy as fiercely as you would guard your life. Because, in a way, that's exactly what you're doing. The hidden war you didn't see coming is real, and it is fought in whispers, glances, and the unspoken exchange of energy between two souls, one that gives freely, and one that takes without end. But you are not powerless here. Recognition is the first weapon in your arsenal. Awareness turns the tide. And when you step back and see the battlefield for what it truly is, you'll realize that the light they tried so hard to steal is still yours, and it's stronger than they ever wanted you to believe. There's something different about the way an empath moves through the world. It's not just kindness or compassion. It's a deep, unshakable connection to the emotions and energies around them. Empaths feel what others feel, often before a word is spoken. They can walk into a room and sense the tension lingering in the air, or the quiet sadness hiding behind someone's smile. This is not a skill you learn. It is a rare frequency you are born with, a kind of emotional radar that runs on instinct. And it's this very frequency that narcissists can detect almost instantly. To them, your presence feels like warmth on a freezing night. They are drawn in, not because they want to bask in your light, but because they crave the power and stability it gives them. An empath's energy is like a clean, clear river, flowing, abundant, and healing to anyone who steps into it. But to a narcissist, that river is not a gift to be appreciated. It's a resource to be consumed. They sense your openness, your willingness to listen without judgment, your ability to forgive even when others would walk away. And to someone whose inner world is a barren desert that is irresistible, they know you will give second chances. They know you will try to understand even the most destructive behavior. They know you will search for the hurt behind their cruelty and try to heal it. This makes you the perfect source of emotional supply. Steady, giving, and full of life. But the truth is, They don't admire you in the way you might think. To a narcissist, your empathy is not a trait to respect. It is a tool to exploit. Your light makes them feel alive, but it also triggers something darker in them, a deep, gnawing awareness of their own emptiness. Your love, your understanding, your endless patience, it reminds them of everything they cannot sustain within themselves. And rather than inspire them to grow, this awareness fuels their desire to take from you even more. They want to keep you close, not out of love, but out of necessity. Without you, the emptiness becomes unbearable. With you, they can mask it, even if only temporarily. This is why the pull between an empath and a narcissist can feel almost magnetic. It's not in your imagination. There is an actual exchange happening, an invisible current of energy flowing from you to them. At first, it may feel mutual. You might even feel a deep sense of connection, as if you finally met someone who sees your soul. But in time, you begin to notice that you are always the one giving, comforting, encouraging, absorbing their pain, while your own needs go unnoticed. This imbalance is the very heartbeat of the narcissistic dynamic. What makes it so dangerous is that an empath's light doesn't just heal others, it sustains them. And when that light is directed towards someone who is unwilling to reciprocate, the empath begins to dim without even realizing it. You might feel more tired, more anxious, less sure of yourself. You might begin to doubt your worth, thinking you're not doing enough to fix the relationship. But here's the truth. Your light is not meant to be drained by someone who refuses to shine their own. The reason narcissists seek out empaths is simple. They cannot generate the same depth of emotional energy on their own. They need someone else's river to drink from. They need your kindness to soften their rough edges, your stability to ground their chaos, your belief in them to mask their self-doubt. Without a steady source of light, they are forced to confront the void within themselves, and that's a reality they will do almost anything to avoid. An empath's presence offers what feels like safety to a narcissist, but it is a false safety, because the narcissist is not interested in building something mutual. They are interested in keeping the light flowing in their direction, no matter the cost to you. They may mirror your emotions, copy your values, and even take on your language of compassion, not because they've changed, but because it makes them easier to keep you hooked. They become a reflection of your own goodness, a mirror that tricks you into thinking you've found your match. And yet, there's a power in this knowledge. Once you understand that your light is rare, that it is a gift not everyone is ready or willing to honor, you begin to see the truth behind the pull. You begin to recognize the difference between someone who cherishes your light and someone who consumes it. You realize that your empathy is sacred, and it is not your responsibility to keep others from the darkness if it means extinguishing yourself. The moth may be drawn to the flame, but it is the flame that decides how close it will allow the moth to come. And when an empath learns to guard their light, to offer it only to those who will keep it safe, the very thing that once made them a target becomes their greatest shield. When most people think about toxic relationships, they imagine arguments, manipulation, or cruel words. But what happens between an empath and a narcissist goes far deeper. It's not just emotional harm. It's not even just psychological control. What takes place is an unseen transaction, one that leaves the empath depleted and the narcissist strangely recharged. This is the dark energy exchange, where the life force of one person becomes the fuel for another. Narcissists do not simply want your time or your attention. They want your essence. They want the emotional warmth, the joy, the hope, and the strength that you carry within you. Every time you comfort them, every time you calm their chaos, every time you pour your heart into trying to make things right, there's a transfer of energy. And in that transfer, you give a piece of yourself away. This is why being around a narcissist can feel like walking out of a conversation emotionally exhausted, even if nothing dramatic happened. They may not yell or threaten. Sometimes, they just unload their constant problems onto you, subtly shifting the weight of their emotional burdens onto your shoulders. Other times, they create tension and conflict, not necessarily to solve anything, but to provoke a reaction, to stir up your emotions, because your emotional reaction is their supply. It feeds them in a way they cannot feed themselves. They thrive on your attention, whether it's love, frustration, or even anger. To a narcissist, it doesn't matter if the energy is positive or negative, as long as it flows toward them, they are satisfied. This goes beyond ordinary manipulation because it's not just about control, it's about taking something sacred. For an empath, emotional energy isn't just a mood. It's tied to their sense of self, their intuition, their connection to others, and even their spiritual well-being. When a narcissist drains that energy, they are not just tiring you out. They are robbing you of the strength you need to stay aligned with your own truth. Over time, this can leave you feeling disconnected from yourself, like you're watching your own life from a distance instead of living it. You start losing the spark that once made you vibrant. Your passions fade, your sense of purpose feels blurry, and your once strong inner voice grows faint. And here's the most dangerous part. Narcissists are masters at making you believe this is your fault. They will suggest that you're too sensitive, that you overthink everything, or that you're never satisfied. These aren't just insults, they are strategic blows meant to push you further off balance, so you don't notice how much of yourself you're giving away. They want you to think the exhaustion you feel is because of your own flaws, when in reality, it's the direct result of the one-sided energy exchange they've engineered. From a spiritual perspective, this is theft of the highest order. It's like someone breaking into a temple and taking the sacred fire, leaving the space cold and empty. For an empath, that sacred fire is the compassion, peace, and emotional clarity they share with the world. Without it, they are left vulnerable, not just to the narcissist, but to life itself. That's why, after prolonged exposure to this dynamic, many empaths experience burnout, depression, or a deep sense of emptiness. It's not that they've lost themselves in the poetic sense. They've been drained, piece by piece, until their inner reserves are nearly gone. And yet, there is something the narcissist can never truly take. They can dim your light, but they cannot own it. They can disrupt your energy, but they cannot create it within themselves. The source of your empathy, your compassion, your strength, it comes from a place they cannot reach or replicate. This is why they keep returning, even after periods of distance. They are like someone who has tasted water in the desert. They will keep seeking the well, because without it, they must face the truth of their own emptiness. Once you recognize the pattern of this dark energy exchange, you begin to see it for what it is, not a reflection of your wife, but a survival tactic for them. And that's when you realize the most powerful thing you can do is not fight them on their battlefield, but step away entirely. Because the moment the energy stops flowing toward them, the theft ends, and you begin to heal. A narcissist never shows the same face to everyone. They live in two worlds, wearing a mask so convincing that most people never suspect what lies beneath. In public, they can be charming, generous, witty, someone who lights up a room with their presence. They know exactly how to make people feel special, how to tell the right stories, how to play the part of the admired friend, the attentive partner, or the caring colleague. This is the world they want you, and everyone else, to see. It's a carefully curated performance, polished over years of practice, designed to protect their true nature and secure the admiration they crave. But behind closed doors, when the audience is gone, the mask slips. This is when the other world emerges, one that is cold, critical, controlling, and, at times, cruel. For the empath caught in their orbit, this duality is one of the most confusing and damaging aspects of the relationship. You've seen the charming version of them, the one that makes everyone laugh, the one who seems so thoughtful and engaging. But you've also seen the side no one else believes exists. The sharp tone, the calculated withdrawal of affection, the subtle digs meant to undermine your confidence. The world sees a hero, you see the shadow. And when you try to tell others, you're often met with disbelief. That doesn't sound like them at all, they'll say. They're such a good person. This is part of the narcissist's design. By controlling the public narrative, they make it nearly impossible for you to expose the truth without looking bitter, jealous, or unstable. The mask is not just a disguise. It is a weapon. It keeps the narcissist protected from accountability while isolating you in your reality. You begin to wonder if maybe you are overreacting, if maybe the kind, generous version is the real them, and the cruel moments are just stress or misunderstanding. But over time, the pattern becomes undeniable. The public charm is consistent, almost rehearsed, while the private cruelty follows a cycle: intensity, withdrawal, then temporary kindness to pull you back in. It's a push-pull dynamic designed to keep you hooked. And because the mask works so well on others, you feel trapped between what you know to be true and what everyone else believes. In spiritual terms, the mask serves another purpose. It shields the narcissist from being truly seen. Vulnerability would require them to face their own emptiness, their own wounds, their own humanity. But the mask allows them to project an identity instead, one they can control and manipulate. It's why they work so hard to maintain it in public. If the mask cracks, the carefully built illusion could collapse. And for someone whose entire sense of worth depends on that illusion, this is the ultimate threat. For the empath, understanding the mask is crucial. It's not a random mood swing or temporary phase. It is the core of how the narcissist survives. They cannot sustain the public persona without having a private outlet for their dissatisfaction and insecurity. Unfortunately, that outlet is often the empath, the person they feel safe enough to reveal their shadow to. Because they know you'll forgive, you'll understand, you'll absorb it without retaliating. In their mind, this is balance. They give the world their best self, and they give you the rest. But here's the truth that breaks the cycle. The mask is not the real them, and neither is the cruelty. It's all performance, tailored to control the environment and maintain their emotional supply. Once you see that both sides are part of the same act, the confusion begins to clay. You stop chasing the good version, hoping it will return permanently, and start recognizing that the real person is the one who needs the mask to function. And when you see the mask for what it truly is, you stop trying to fix what was never broken in you, and start protecting yourself from the one who wears it. The most dangerous assaults are often the ones you cannot see. Narcissists know this well. They rarely come at you with open hostility from the start. Instead, they chip away at you in ways so small and so subtle that, at first, you barely notice anything is wrong. They don't just wound your feelings. They work to disrupt the very alignment of your spirit. Spiritual alignment is that deep, steady connection to your inner truth, the place where your intuition, your peace, and your sense of purpose live. It's what keeps you grounded and clear-minded, even in difficult times. But when you are under the influence of a narcissist, this alignment begins to shift, not in a sudden, obvious way, but in tiny increments, like a compass needle being pulled just a few degrees off course every day until one morning, you realize you're lost in a place you never intended to be. It begins with small doubts, a casual remark that makes you question your judgment, a sarcastic joke that feels like a dig, a moment where they rewrite a shared memory in a way that favors them, leaving you wondering if your mind is playing tricks on you. Each of these moments plants a seed of uncertainty, and the more uncertainty grows, the weaker your trust in yourself becomes. For an empath, whose greatest strength is their inner knowing, this is a devastating shift. Without that inner connection, you start relying on the narcissist for guidance, validation, even reality itself. And this is exactly what they want. Over time, the silent spiritual attack deepens. You notice you pray less, meditate less, or spend less time doing the things that once fed your soul. The emotional chaos they create demands so much of your mental energy that there's little left for your own spiritual practices. This isn't by accident. The narcissist thrives when you are too distracted or depleted to connect with your source of strength. They know that if you feel grounded and aligned, their hold on you weakens. So they keep you spinning, through drama, guilt, false promises, and sudden bursts of kindness that keep you guessing. This attack is silent because it doesn't announce itself like open abuse. There are no obvious wounds for others to see. Instead, it's an erosion, slow, quiet, and constant. You may still appear functional on the outside, going about your daily life, but inside, you feel further and further from your center. And as your alignment drifts, so does your ability to hear your own truth. The voice inside you, the one that used to guide you, becomes faint, drowned out by the noise of their influence. From a spiritual perspective, this is theft of the highest kind. It's not just that they take your energy, they disrupt your connection to the very source that replenishes it. It's like someone subtly blocking the sunlight from a plant, not enough to kill it outright, but enough to weaken it over time, making it easier to control, easier to shape to their will. And the more you lose touch with that inner light, the easier it becomes for them to step into the role of your compass, directing your choices in ways that benefit them. The true danger is that you often don't see it happening until the damage is deep. You wake up one day and realize you're no longer the person you used to be. The laughter feels forced. The joy feels distant. The faith, the clarity, the ease you once carried. It's like they've been pushed to the edges of your life. And in that moment, you may feel hopeless. But the truth is, spiritual alignment is never truly lost. It can be reclaimed. The very act of recognizing the attack for what it is the first step toward breaking free. Because once you name it, you stop mistaking it for normal. You start to rebuild, piece by piece, reconnecting to the practices, the people, and the truths that strengthen your spirit. And when your alignment returns, when your inner compass swings back to true north, the narcissist's power begins to crumble. They cannot survive where clarity and peace reside. They cannot thrive in the presence of a soul that has remembered its own strength. And that is why, despite the silence of their attack, your awareness of it becomes your greatest weapon. Why do so many empaths, despite seeing the red flags, sensing the lies, and feeling the weight of constant emotional exhaustion, find themselves unable to truly walk away from toxic relationships? It's not weakness, and it's not ignorance. It's something far deeper, a set of psychological and spiritual chains that tighten around the empath's heart and mind until escape feels impossible. From the very beginning, empaths experience the world differently. They don't just see behavior, they feel it. They absorb the moods, the pain, the hopes, and even the hidden fears of the people around them. This heightened sensitivity makes them extraordinary healers, listeners, and companions, but it also makes them prime targets for those who thrive on emotional control, such as narcissists or deeply manipulative personalities. In the early stages of a toxic relationship, an empath often becomes enchanted by what feels like a rare and deep connection. The other person mirrors their values, speaks their language, and reflects back the same vulnerability the empath carries. It feels almost fated, like two souls recognizing each other. But what's really happening is a carefully constructed illusion, an emotional hook designed to bind the empath through shared dreams, intense eye contact, and constant validation. This is the first chain, the illusion of destiny, where the empath believes they've found someone who understands them in ways the rest of the world never could. Over time, this illusion begins to crack. Subtle jabs replace kind words. Boundaries are tested, then crossed. The empath feels the shift but tells themselves it's just a bad day, a rough season, or maybe even their own fault. This is where the second chain forms, the hope of restoration. Empaths see not just who someone is, but who they could be. They imagine the better version of that person and feel almost a sacred duty to help them get there. They think, if I just love harder, understand more, or stay a little longer, the good times will return. But that good is often just a breadcrumb trail leading them deeper into the cycle. The third chain is emotional responsibility. Because empaths are wired to care, they can feel responsible for other people's happiness, healing, and even redemption. Walking away feels like abandonment. The thought of someone suffering, even if that someone is the cause of their pain, becomes unbearable. And so, the empath stays, telling themselves they can handle the hurt if it means sparing the other person from feeling alone. What they don't always realize is that this is emotional self-sacrifice on a dangerous scale, slowly eroding their own sense of self-worth. Then comes the fourth chain, spiritual entanglement. Many empaths feel relationships on a soul-deep level. They interpret certain connections as divinely orchestrated or karmically significant. This can be beautiful, but in toxic dynamics, it becomes a weapon. Narcissists may even exploit spiritual language or shared beliefs to reinforce the bond, making the empath feel as if walking away would be defying some greater plan. This entanglement creates an invisible tether, where the relationship feels like more than just a human bond. It feels like fate, obligation, or even spiritual duty. Layered over all these chains is the fifth and perhaps most dangerous, the erosion of identity. Toxic relationships chip away at an empath's confidence, clarity, and self-trust. Gaslighting convinces them their perceptions are flawed, their feelings are overreactions, and their memories are unreliable. Over time, the empath can lose sight of who they were before the relationship began. When your identity feels fractured, the idea of leaving isn't just scary, it's disorienting. It's not just walking away from a person, it's walking into a void where you're no longer sure who you are. This stuckness is not a matter of willpower. It's the product of psychological conditioning and spiritual entrapment. The empath becomes like a bird whose cage door is open but doesn't fly away, not because it doesn't want freedom, but because it's been conditioned to believe it can't survive outside the cage. Breaking free isn't about one grand act of courage, it's about slowly dismantling each chain. The illusion of destiny must be replaced with the truth of reality. The hope of restoration must shift to the acceptance that change can only come from the other person's choice, not the empath's sacrifice. Emotional responsibility must be reframed as self-respect, understanding that caring for others should never mean abandoning yourself. Spiritual entanglement must be unraveled by realizing that no divine plan requires your suffering as its price. And finally, the lost identity must be reclaimed piece by piece, through self-care, boundary setting, and reconnecting with the parts of you that existed long before this relationship. When empaths begin to see the chains for what they are, they start to loosen, and with each loosening, the fog lifts. They remember their strength, their intuition, and the truth that love is never meant to feel like constant exhaustion. Freedom doesn't come all at once. It arrives in small, quiet victories. Saying no, taking space, trusting a gut feeling again. And one day, almost without realizing it, the empath looks up and finds that the cage is no longer around them. They've been flying this whole time. They just had to remember they had wings. The truth is, beneath all the arrogance, manipulation, and control, narcissists carry one fear so deep they would never dare to admit it: losing power over someone who finally sees through them. For the narcissist, relationships are never about love, respect, or genuine connection. They are about control, fuel, and validation. They thrive when the empath doubts themselves, when they can twist reality and keep the empath questioning their worth. But the moment an empath wakes up to their own power, the moment they begin to recognize their inner light and set firm boundaries, the entire foundation of the narcissist's control begins to crumble. This is their greatest fear: an empowered empath who no longer reacts to their games, who no longer needs their approval, and who refuses to be drawn into the chaos. Because once an empath reaches this stage, the narcissist's tricks lose their potency. The silent treatments, the guilt trips, the subtle digs, none of it works anymore. The empath's clarity acts like a mirror, forcing the narcissist to face their own emptiness, and there's nothing more terrifying for them than that reflection. An empowered empath operates from a place of calm certainty. They no longer justify, explain, or defend themselves to someone who is committed to misunderstanding them. They learn that walking away is not weakness. It is the ultimate act of strength. And in that moment, the narcissist's power dissolves, because it was never real power in the first place. It was only ever borrowed energy from someone else's light. That's why narcissists fear empowered empaths more than anything. Because once an empath stops feeding the game, the narcissist is left alone with the one thing they have been running from their whole life: themselves. The wake-up call often comes like a quiet whisper in the back of your mind, a moment where you finally stop and ask yourself, why do I feel so drained, so small, so unsure of myself? It's not always dramatic, but it's powerful, a shift in awareness that makes you start connecting the dots. You begin to realize that certain people in your life aren't just difficult, they're weaving patterns so subtle and calculated that, without noticing, you've been pulled into their web. Narcissistic tactics rarely start with open cruelty. Instead, they begin with charm, attention, and an almost magnetic pull that makes you feel seen and special. But underneath, there's a quiet agenda, a need to control, to manipulate, and to feed off your energy. At first, the signs are easy to dismiss. They might make little jokes at your expense, but say you're too sensitive when you react. They might shift blame when confronted, twisting the story so convincingly that you start questioning your own memory. Over time, these small moments build into a pattern, and that's where the real danger lies. Because once you stop trusting yourself, you become dependent on their version of reality. Recognizing these patterns means learning to slow down and observe. Narcissists are masters at distraction. They'll overwhelm you with fast-talking explanations, sudden emotional outbursts, or even silent treatments that keep you guessing. But if you can pause, breathe, and pay attention to the consistency of their behavior, the truth starts revealing itself. Watch for cycles. They often repeat the same tactics over and over. The idealization stage where they shower you with affection, the devaluation stage where they chip away at your worth, and the discard stage where they withdraw to make you chase their approval again. These aren't random mood swings. They are strategies designed to keep you unbalanced and easier to control. Another clear pattern is the erosion of your boundaries. Narcissists don't always break them with force. Sometimes, they simply ignore them. They might push into your private space, make decisions for you without asking, or expect your time and energy without offering anything back. Over time, your boundaries begin to blur, not because you want them to, but because constant pressure has made you believe it's easier to give in than to fight back. Recognizing this is vital. Every time you feel that knot in your stomach when someone speaks over you, dismisses your feelings, or crosses a line you've set, you are witnessing a pattern of disrespect that will only grow if unchecked. Gaslighting is another signature move in their playbook. This is where they twist facts, deny things they've said or done, and plant seeds of doubt in your mind. The goal is simple: to make you question your perception of reality so they can replace it with their own. If you've ever found yourself apologizing for something you didn't do, feeling confused after a conversation, or replaying events to figure out if you're overreacting, you may have been on the receiving end of gaslighting. The wake-up call here is to trust your memory and intuition more than their words. You are not imagining things. You are recognizing manipulation in action. But perhaps the most dangerous pattern is how they slowly train you to seek their approval above your own. They will withhold affection when you stand your ground and reward you when you comply. This creates a subconscious loop. Your mind begins to connect pleasing them with feeling safe or valued, even though it's an illusion. This is how many strong, intelligent, and empathetic people find themselves trapped, not because they are weak, but because the manipulation is gradual and expertly disguised. The good news is, once you see the pattern, it becomes harder for them to control you. That's why narcissists fear self-aware empaths the most. An empath who has learned to recognize these tactics doesn't just survive. They thrive, because they stop reacting emotionally to every manipulation and start responding with clarity and boundaries. The moment you begin to notice that certain behaviors repeat, that their reactions are calculated, and that your energy feels lighter when you step away from them, You're no longer their ideal target. The wake-up call is not just about spotting the tactics. It's about reclaiming your power. It's about remembering that you are allowed to protect your peace, that you can say no without explanation, and that your worth is not determined by how well you keep someone else happy. When you begin to view interactions through this lens, you stop falling for the bait. You start noticing the shift in tone before they launch into a guilt trip. You recognize the flattery that precedes a request for something unreasonable. You hear the subtle insults for what they are, not jokes, but attempts to chip away at your self-esteem. The power shift begins the moment you decide that you no longer want to be an endless source of energy for someone who only takes, never gives, and leaves you feeling drained every time you interact with them. Narcissists thrive on a steady diet of emotional reactions: your anger, your tears, your confusion, your need for their approval, and they have learned how to manipulate situations so that you keep feeding them exactly what they crave. But the truth is, the moment you start guarding your energy like it's the most valuable currency you own, the entire dynamic changes. They lose control. The supply they depended on begins to dry up, and that's when you step out of their shadow and back into your own light. Taking back your energy is not about revenge. It's about reclaiming yourself, your peace, your focus, your joy. It starts with one simple truth. You have more power than they ever wanted you to realize. They survive on your attention, and the moment you stop handing it over freely, you force them to face a truth they've been running from, that they are not as powerful as they pretend to be. The first step is learning to go emotionally silent. You can still speak, still communicate, but your emotions are no longer on display for them to consume. This is called gray rocking, and it works because narcissists hate being denied the drama they feed on. When you respond in short, calm, neutral ways, they lose their grip on your emotional state. On a deeper level, taking back your energy requires you to become aware of where it's going every day. Ask yourself, what thoughts am I giving the most space to? Who is occupying my mental real estate without paying rent? You'll often find that a narcissist's voice, whether they are physically present or not, lingers in your mind, replaying old arguments, making you second-guess yourself, or triggering self-doubt. This is where spiritual tools become essential. Whether it's prayer, meditation, breathwork, or simply spending time in silence, you need a practice that cleanses your mind and pulls you back into the present moment. When you create daily rituals that center you, you make it harder for them to invade your mental space. Boundaries are another non-negotiable part of this shift. Narcissists hate boundaries because they limit their access to you. That's why you must set them clearly and enforce them without apology. This might mean limiting conversations, avoiding certain topics, or even physically distancing yourself. And when they try to push past those boundaries, which they always will, you stand firm. You don't need to explain, justify, or defend. A simple no or I'm not available for that is enough. The less you explain, the less ammunition you give them. Remember, every boundary you uphold is an act of reclaiming your power. There's also an energetic side to this process that many overlook. Narcissists don't just drain you through arguments and manipulation. They can also deplete you simply by being in your presence, because their energy field is like a vacuum, constantly pulling. To counter this, visualize yourself surrounded by a protective shield of light every time you interact with them. Imagine that their words and actions bounce off this shield without penetrating your inner peace. This is not just woo-woo. It's a powerful psychological technique that reinforces your mental and emotional separation from them. Over time, you'll notice their ability to get under your skin starts to fade. Let's talk about what it really means for an empath to put on spiritual armor. When you're an empath, you feel deeply, sometimes so deeply that other people's emotions blend into your own. You can walk into a room and sense tension before a word is spoken. You can look into someone's eyes and feel the heaviness they've been carrying. This gift is powerful, but it can also be draining, especially when you cross paths with narcissists or toxic personalities who see your light as a resource they can exploit. That's why you must learn how to guard your soul, not by shutting down your compassion, but by protecting your energy in a way that allows you to keep shining without being consumed. Spiritual armor isn't something you put on once and forget about. It's a daily practice, a conscious choice. Think of it as a sacred shield made of intention, prayer, boundaries, and self-respect. One of the most effective starting points is the power of affirmations. These are not just positive phrases. They are declarations that rewire your mind and energy field. When you say, "My energy is my own, and I choose who I share it with," you're reminding yourself that you have the authority over your own spirit. An affirmation like "I am divinely protected and guided at all times" creates a mental and spiritual barrier that makes it harder for negative influences to take root. Repetition is key. Speak these words daily, ideally in the morning, so you start the day fortified. Boundaries are another crucial part of this armor. Many empaths struggle here because they confuse kindness with unlimited access. But boundaries are not walls to keep love out. They are gates that you open and close with discernment. You have the right to say no without guilt, to step away from conversations that leave you feeling small, and to limit your time around people who drain you. A practical boundary could be deciding not to engage in certain topics with specific individuals, or refusing to respond to manipulative guilt trips. Spiritually, it's knowing that you are not responsible for fixing everyone's life. You can hold space for others without carrying their burdens as your own. Prayer and meditation are your spiritual recharge stations. Prayer is not only about asking for help, it's also about aligning yourself with divine wisdom and strength. When you pray, you invite a higher power to stand with you, creating a spiritual force field around your heart. Something as simple as "God, surround me with your light and shield me from all harm" can change the way you carry yourself through the day. Meditation, on the other hand, helps you clear the clutter. Sitting in silence, focusing on your breath, and imagining a golden light filling your body can dissolve any residual negativity you've absorbed. This isn't just relaxation, it's spiritual cleansing, returning you to your own frequency. Visualizing protection is a powerful technique, too. Before entering a difficult space or interacting with a challenging person, imagine yourself surrounded by a bubble of radiant light, maybe gold, white, or violet. See this light as impenetrable to negativity, allowing only love and truth to pass through. Some empaths picture themselves wearing an invisible suit of armor, reflecting back anything harmful. This mental imagery may sound simple, but your mind responds to what you visualize as if it were real. Over time, your energy naturally shifts into this protected state, making you less of a target for manipulation. You must also pay attention to your physical well-being, because your spiritual armor is linked to your body state. A tired, overworked empath is like a fortress with an open gate. Proper rest, nutrition, movement, and hydration are not luxuries. They are part of your defense system. Even taking a quiet walk in nature, barefoot if possible, can ground your energy and help you release what doesn't belong to you. Nature has a way of reminding you of your place in something much greater than the chaos of human ego. Breaking the soul tie with a narcissist is not just about walking away physically. It is a deeply intentional spiritual act that frees your heart, mind, and spirit from their grip. Soul ties are powerful, unseen cords that form through emotional intimacy, shared experiences, and the deep exchange of energy between two people. In a healthy bond, this tie can feel life-giving and supportive. But in the case of a narcissist, it becomes a spiritual chain, one that drains you, manipulates your emotions, and keeps you trapped in cycles of pain long after the relationship ends. It's why you can find yourself still thinking about them, still feeling guilty, or still longing for their approval, even when you know they were toxic. That's the power of a soul tie. It lingers until you consciously break it. The first step is awareness. You must recognize that this connection is not serving your highest good, no matter how strong the pull feels. Narcissists create a false sense of specialness, making you believe that what you shared was rare and irreplaceable. But the truth is, their hold over you is rooted in control, not love. Begin by speaking truth over yourself. I release every connection that was not built on mutual respect, love, and honesty. These affirmations may feel awkward at first, but they start to weaken the emotional chain by replacing the lies with clarity. The second step is renunciation. This is a spiritual declaration that you no longer consent to carrying the energy or influence of the narcissist in your life. You can do this privately through prayer, meditation, or spoken word. Visualize a cord connecting you and the narcissist, then see yourself cutting it with a bright, divine light, something that cannot be repaired or reattached. Imagine their energy flowing back to them and yours retaining fully to you, leaving you whole and unburdened. Some people also write the person's name on a piece of paper and then safely burn or bury it, symbolizing the end of the bond in the physical world. Next comes cleansing. After breaking the soul tie, you must clear your emotional and spiritual space to prevent the bond from reforming. This means removing physical reminders, photos, gifts, messages, and stopping yourself from revisiting their social media or asking about them. In the spiritual sense, cleansing can include prayer, smudging with sage or incense, salt baths, or even simply sitting in nature to allow your spirit to reset. The aim is to remove any lingering residue of their energy so you can fully step into your own light. Forgiveness is also a powerful, though often misunderstood, part of breaking a soul tie. Forgiving the narcissist doesn't mean excusing their behavior or letting them back into your life.